Hello, my name is Robert Nordlund from Association Reserves. This is a recording of a presentation I gave in Miami earlier this week, December 8th, to the National Association of Real Estate Editors. They asked me to speak about what has been known as the Surfside Tragedy, the collapse of the Champlain Towers South condominium, from the point of view of a reserve study provider. They wanted to see what I had to say about the real estate market impact and my point of view of the changes that would come about from this pivotal event in the community association industry. This was my portion of the presentation that was to be followed by a Q&A session afterwards. Well, it all starts out with understanding that association governed communities are indeed multi-million-dollar nonprofit entities run by an untrained volunteer board of directors, and you ask yourself, what could possibly go wrong with such a situation? Well, when we see it as a reserve study provider, we see board of directors making some foolish financial mistakes, failing to maintain their asphalt in this case, resulting in absolute failure of the asphalt and unsafe conditions. We see a failure of something very, it looks cosmetic, but it is significant to the association. The ceiling of a pool deck, just something that is very unsightly, or failing to paint the wood trim in a timely manner. Or could be failing to paint the ironwork in a timely manner. Failing to paint the ironwork results, of course, in significant rusting and deterioration and having to replace the entire ironwork. Or it could be this pool area bathroom, the recreation area of the association, where the board of directors had just let vandalism get out of hand. And it was just incredible to see what they had let go. And they were not keeping up with what is going on at the association. They just abandoned this to being a poor situation. And then this was a tennis court that I was surprised to see. It was listed as an asset to the association, and one could only, in their largest sense of the imagination, still consider this a tennis court. The perimeter fencing was gone. It had obviously been years since this had once been a tennis court. What's a board member thinking when they allow this to happen? And it makes me wonder what a real estate agent is supposed to say when they are showing some prospective buyers of the association. Yeah, they're not wasting the HOA dues on funding reserves. It's now, the whole place is kind of falling apart. And we see some more foolish decisions. This is an underground parking garage. I had to be very careful how I shot this picture. I was avoiding getting pictures of Mercedes, Jaguars, BMWs, focusing just on the common area garage, where you can see the garage was leaking. The telltale white efflorescence there, the calcium that comes out. And the board had built gutters to protect owners' expensive cars rather than actually seal the concrete and prevent the water intrusion. And there's other things like this that we see, balcony deterioration, where I wonder how safe is that? And then it gets to a personal issue. This was a short bridge that I needed to walk across at one association. I'm not a large man, and I was walking across exactly where the structural portion of this bridge was, because I didn't want to punch through. Just not how I wanted to spend my day, punching through and falling in the water. So it gets your attention. And then, of course, the topic of the day is Champlain Towers South, where our understanding of what could go wrong expanded from silliness, deterioration, maybe lagging property values, or special assessments. And all the way now, we now believe that tragedy is a possible consequence of deferred maintenance. So it's a very big deal. We're involved in this because we prepared the association's reserve study in early 2020. And as we now know, the association ran out of time to implement that plan to remediate their 40 years of deterioration. Ours was the first reserve study they'd ever prepared. And that is a dangerous thing to do, to wait 40 years before really trying to care for the larger elements of the building. So what we found was this wasn't really a surprise. This was a deteriorated building. All these issues are revealed in one calculation in a reserve study that links physical and financial health. It's called percent funded. It basically is a balance between the cash in reserves to the value of current deterioration. The board at Champlain Towers South was lured into feeling somewhat good about matters. They had $700,000 in reserves. To them, that felt good. They never matched it against the needs of the association, and their percent funded was a very low number. And so getting in that situation took many years, and we had some serious advice and a stiff course of action that we were recommending to restore the association to a position of physical and financial health. So we asked the question, what now? And we feel that there's likely going to be significant changes in the community association real estate market in three areas: education, legislation, and the business side, the market side. So let's focus on education first. There's a national trade organization called the Community Association Institute. They're dedicated to everything condominium, townhome, HOA, and they have a research arm, and that research arm of CAI released a publication in May of 2020. I was one of the contributing authors on that document, and it was asking the question, what's it take for an association to age successfully? And after a few years of looking into this, they finally released this publication in May of 2020, concluding that for a building to age successfully, there's going to be four characteristics. They need to update the reserve study regularly to find out what is the course forward, to inform the board what to do. And then not only just get that information, but they need to fund reserves as recommended, collecting funds from the members so that there is sufficient funds to, number three, do the project, spend the reserves as recommended, take care of those deterioration elements and keep up with the maintenance needs of the building. And number four was to perform a periodic safety inspection, infrastructure, architectural or engineering report to inform the board, are there additional things that are beyond the minor obvious cash flow needs of the association? And then there's educational response. The same CAI trade organization released a report in October of 21 following the tragic collapse, talking about what is appropriate for an association to do. And they drew significantly from that earlier report, saying best practice is to update the reserve study every third year on the basis of a diligent visual site inspection. And CAI came out publicly opposing laws allowing owners to veto reserve funding. And that'll be significant in just a moment. I'll address that. And they recommend an inclusion of infrastructure issues in reserve planning. And no surprise, the reserve study is the cash flow and budget management tool for the association. And you need the information that comes from a safety and infrastructure inspection report to inform that reserve study so that all the major elements at a community association are incorporated in that budget and cash flow. Then in addition, there's a large educational element that involves experts. I've been speaking at more events this year than ever before. I did my first 2 podcasts. I've been doing webinars with other experts, attorneys, insurance, management experts, basically helping boards to know what went on, what they can do better, how they can provide peace to their association. And then we released a book in December of 2020. And so we've been trying to get that distributed to help association board members understand what are the key issues with respect to reserves, how can they make wise decisions that will help their association get successfully to the future. Don't want to leave any issues on the table, don't want any boards to wonder, what should I do about this issue? So then we turn the corner to legislation. Now, last week, I was pounding the halls in Tallahassee, meeting with, I think, 18 senators and representatives, speaking about 2 things that need to change in Florida law that were contributing factors to the situation, the tragedy in Surfside. One is only in Florida, and only in Florida, homeowners have a line item veto on one budget line item. And that one budget line item is reserve funding. So the boards are commonly trying to set some funds aside to care for the long-term infrastructure needs of the association, whether that be big projects or small projects, the pool furniture, the painting, the roofing, the major mechanical, and the owners regularly vote to veto that, keeping that extra 20 or 50 bucks a month in their own pockets. And that, as I say, is unique to Florida, and that's something that needs to stop. Here's a profile of reserve fund strength. It's a profile of percent funded, which I mentioned earlier, showing the profile across the country in 49 states. You can see it's a nice, well-behaved bell curve. It's cut off at 0 because you can't have negative money, but majority of associations across the country are in this middle fair yellow range. What I want to point out is that in this red zone, across the country, about 30% of associations are in this red weak range, where there's a lot of deterioration, deferred maintenance, special assessments. That's the red zone. It's about 30% of associations. Yet in Florida, due to the owners having the power to waive reserves, you can see that 45% of associations in the state of Florida are in the red weak zone. That is one very specific law that does not do well for the community associations in the state of Florida. And here's a side-by-side comparison. The national profile on the left, Florida on the right, and you can see very clearly that the data shows that this is not good for the community associations in Florida. And the other thing is, we think it's appropriate that the board members be confronted with the news, what's going on at their association, what should they do at least every 3 years. It's not unreasonable. Just like a tax return looks 1 year backwards, a reserve study is a budget and cash flow projection that looks forwards, and you need to refresh that information on a regular basis. Okay, well, let's turn to the market response. There was a realization, as we were aware that this had happened to one of our clients. Is there something that we can do? And we felt very strongly that, yes, businesses have the power to stand up and say, this is unacceptable. And we started thinking and discussing with other providers of services, what can we do to guide board members towards making better decisions, not waiting for education to have its effect, not waiting for legislation to provide a stick for the board members. But one thing that we launched just a month ago is we're the largest reserve study company in the country, and Kevin Davis Insurance Services is the largest specialty provider of community association insurance in the country. And we are now joining together to offer incentives for association boards, basically discounts that have current credible reserve studies. Getting a reserve study and being informed of what they should do is the first step, and we are encouraging that kind of behavior at this time. And any of you involved with community associations know of this thing that we describe as the brick wall of association secrecy. It forces buyers to beware. It forces, you may have experienced this, real estate writers, investigative reporters to wonder what's going on, because there's just no way to find out what is happening kind of behind the wall within the association. So without any way to find this information, the only thing that is really public is the monthly assessments, and boards very foolishly tend to pursue what we call the fool's gold of low monthly assessments. That's a number that they want to keep low because it makes the association look a little more attractive, look a little more affordable. But the result of that is unwanted and unsettling special assessments and deferred maintenance. Basically, the owners have been not told the truth about the true cost of ownership at the association. And these are all very predictable projects. Roofing fails on schedule. Painting needs to be repainted on schedule. Asphalt fails on schedule. All these things happen on schedule. They're very predictable. And this results in special assessments and deferred maintenance. So what if there was a national online database of associations, gathering associations together in one place, and not just an online database of association information, but of scored ratings? How would you like that? Well, this is something that we're currently working on. We are looking forward to making a big announcement in the first quarter of next year, 2022, to launch this product. It's a national online scored rating system for community associations, like a FICO score for condos. And that's the end of my prepared comments. And it's at this point in time that we turn it over to other speakers and Q&A. Thank you very much.